the economic impact. Larry Kudlow, President Trump's new National Economic Council Director. A lot going on, Larry. Good to see you.
Nice to see you, Mark.
It's good to have you here tonight. You know, it strikes me when you listen to Ed's report, you know, this idea that Paul Ryan is leaving and that Republicans have decided that there's nothing big that can get accomplished on the legislative agenda in terms of the economy, entitlement reform, those kind of things, which I know have been important to you for years. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm not sure I agree with all of it with respect to Ed. First of all, Paul Ryan, who's an old friend of mine, he just wants to go home to Wisconsin, be with his family. He's raising kids and he's never there. So I perfectly
I think everybody gets that.
Understand. Sure. Yeah. I mean, you can't blame the guy. And he did great service. And by the way, he and President Trump worked really well together on the tax cut. I mean, I know because I was out of the government, but I was deeply involved in that thing. They worked really well on that. Regarding the rest of the year, you know, I wouldn't rule out an infrastructure bill. I know that's being discussed on the Hill and in the White House. There may be some more budget activity. That is possible. There may be even some more tax activity. So we'll see on that.
But, you know, obviously, Paul Ryan, for years, entitlement reform was the other piece of what he wanted to accomplish. He said that today. Is entitlement reform important to you? Is it important to the president?
Yes, it is. Tough thing to do. Probably even tougher than tax cuts. I've been down that road. I'm an old OMB green eye shade under Ronald Reagan. I know that drill. It's always been a priority. It's always been an issue. And, you know, we're cognizant of the fact that long run, the budget is not in good shape. OK, we know that. And we're pushing for a more modest government. So at some point, these things will have to be tackled.
How can you cut spending or entitlements if you can't keep the House in Republican hands?
Well, look, one point I will make on this. As a supply-side Reagan tax cutter and Trump tax cutter, this economy is going to grow much faster than most people think. In fact, even the CBO gave us a 3% growth posting for 2018. My point is this. Growth solves a lot of the deficit problem. Not all of it, but growth solves a lot. You know, for every 1 percentage point increase in real GDP, I don't want to get into the weeds here, but every time GDP, the economy grows 1% above the estimates from the CBO, that's worth $3.5 trillion in lower deficits. So let's see how that works out. And we'll see how the election, all in front of us. Hard to forecast right now.
What's the impact of losing Paul Ryan on the midterms? I mean, you see all of these Republicans jumping ship. I think there's 41 Republicans who aren't running again for office. I mean, how much is this something that you discuss? Because the economic agenda is what you're going to be driving. It's so central to the president's ability to get reelected. But I go back to the fact, if you lose all these Republicans and you don't have that kind of leverage in the House, how are you going to say you think tax cuts is going to be enough to help the president through the second term?
Well, I don't think they'll be tampered with. Is what I'm saying.
Okay.
If the Democrats, I say if, I'm not a political pundit, but, you know, I would say to people who think there's a Democratic landslide on the way, just hold your horses. Mm-hmm. Let's see how this turns out. Economic growth and jobs and wages are very popular issues. And the people who are saying it's going to be a Republican catastrophe in November are people who have opposed our tax cuts, do not believe we can have better economic growth or help jobs and productivity. Let's see. Let's see how that works out. Again, they're not going to repeal the tax cuts. And if it's a Democratic House, they still won't repeal the tax cuts.
No.
I doubt very much if the Senate changes hands. In fact, I think GOP could pick up some Senate seats. I'm not a political pundit. I'm just saying, just wait.
Just
hang on.
Stand by. But I want to put up a tweet. The president tweeted quite a bit today, actually, but one of them had your name in it. And this is the one that did that. So much fake news about what's going on in the White House. Very calm and calculated with a big with a big focus on open and fair trade with China and coming North Korea meeting, and of course the vicious gas attack in Syria. Feels great to have Bolton and Larry Kay on board. We are, he goes on to say, doing things that nobody thought possible, despite the never-ending and corrupt Russian investigation, which takes tremendous time and focus. No collusion or obstruction other than I fight back, he writes. So now they do the unthinkable and raid a lawyer's office for information. Bad. Well, you know, now tweets are allowed to be longer, so there's about 7 stories in there. But let's cut to the middle of it, Larry, where he talks about what you're doing in terms of China and trade. This is a very big story, and we have seen some movement on China's part. How substantial do you think that's going to be?
By the way, Thank you, sir, for the tweet. I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you.
Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not so nice.
Well,
so
John Bolton is the new national security. He's an old friend of mine going back to Reagan days, so it would be a great pleasure to work with John. NEC and NSC work very closely together. To your point, people continue. This is my take. I've spent a lot of time with him just in the last week or so. He's been great, very accessible. We've talked about a lot of things. We've talked about messaging and so forth. People, this trade thing is sort of vexing to the world. My take is good things are out there, okay? Now, President Xi in China gave a very conciliatory speech 2 nights ago. Very important, because up to now, all of our trade initiatives have been insulted and beaten down in rough language from the Chinese. Very bad. She breaks that. And she also talked about the technology transfers and the stealing of our intellectual property. Those are key issues for us, key issues for the president. So that's good. The president tweeted back, also conciliatory. So I'm hopeful along the process we will see some good negotiations. But I'm also saying, as the president has, we're going to have tariffs in our package. People know that. Whether they're used or not remains to be seen, but they may be used if necessary. And I think, Martha, the key point here is the issue of technology. Now, there's trade deficits in agriculture and autos and all the rest. Technology. They continue intellectual property theft and forced technological transfers from our companies. And they've made life very difficult. To me, they're not in the 21st century. They can't get the technology that makes America the leader, so they're going to try to steal it. We won't let them. You know, I'm a free trader. I'm not a big tariff guy, but we cannot let China get away with these unfair and, frankly, illegal
trade
practices.
So is it fair to say that you think, based on what you've heard this week, that there's going to be negotiation with China? There is not going to be a trade war? Well,
to use an old Reagan thought, trust but verify. So we have heard these promises from China before. Now, they are welcome now. It's a change in their whole attitude. That's good. And the president responded. That's good. So, yes, I think negotiation. But folks should not think there'll be no tariffs. I can't say that. The president will never say that.
What about the soybean farmer I spoke with last night?
He put that out there. People should take that very seriously.
What about the soybean farmer that I spoke with last night, who's very concerned? He voted for this president. Everybody in his farming area of his state voted for this president, and now he feels like it's going to be bad for business.
Well, again, I would say to the farmer, I'd love to meet him, stay cool. We don't even know what we're going to do yet. There are no tariffs yet. I want to make that point. Nothing has been implemented or executed. We're at a stage now where the economics team and trade team are working on options and so forth. They will come out in due course. You have to have public hearings and then private analysis. Nothing's going to happen much for the next couple of months, in my view. That gives plenty of time for the leaders to negotiate and at least keep talking to each other. We're constantly in communication with the Chinese folks. We're constantly. So the farmers, I love them. God bless them. Relax. Just kind of relax. This is Larry talking to them. I want economic
We'll
growth.
bring our farmer back so you guys can talk to each other on the set.
I'm going up to the Hill tomorrow.
I would love that, by the way.
I'd love it, too, by the way. I'm going up to Hill tomorrow to talk to the Republican conference. I understand that farm issues are going to come up. Here, let me go back. Kudlow. Growth. Growth solves a lot of problems, and business is really improving. So let's not go nuts. Let's just relax and see how things work out. Have confidence. Have confidence in this administration and the American economy.
Larry Kudlow, good to see you. I got a lot more to talk about. You're going to have to come back, but thank you so much. It's a pleasure. Good to have you here tonight, Larry. Coming up next, remember this?
I knew that there might come a day when I would need a record of what had happened, not just to defend myself, but to defend the FBI and our integrity as an institution and the independence of our investigative function.
So now, days ahead of James Comey's tell-all new book, new notes have suddenly surfaced that back up the fired FBI director's claims against the president. Have we seen this movie before? Senator Lindsey Graham joins me next. Also tonight, Qatar's leadership visits the White House as the possibility of war in Syria escalates. Will a Gulf alliance stand by the United States and potentially against Syria and Russia? An exclusive interview with the Deputy Prime Minister next.
We speak today and